Hi class, it's Ms. Miller, and this week I want to talk to you about the root or foundation of an argument. And so before we do that, I want to talk to you about the prior knowledge or last week's work, which is summarizing the text. And you guys did a really fine job of that by first highlighting key phrases or words from each paragraph to sort of sum up that section. And also we divided the text into 4 sections to do some chunking. And then from that chunking, we did a précis, which is an objective summary. And the précis is just a fancy word for objective summary. So now that I know that you know the process for how to acknowledge or understand what the text is saying or what an author is saying, now it's time to assert our own claim. I also wanted to discuss with you the work that you did last week. I was really impressed with your debates on Friday, and that was really excited to see just how excited and engaged you guys were. And we're going to do that again, but I wanted you to think about the process. The process was super important because you really had to speak within your turn. And so you couldn't just, and some of you were really anxious to say something while someone was speaking or during their presentation part, but you had to wait, you had to plan and strategize and then do your rebuttal. So that was really exciting to see you guys do that for the first debate for our class. You guys were exceptional. So I'm looking forward to this week's debate too. Now I would like to talk to you about the claim. The claim is really your position about a particular argument. You need to pick a side, or you may have a qualifying position where you have somewhere in the middle. But either way, you have your assertion. And so your audience is not going to accept your claim unless you go about proving it. This is the what of the argument. What do you think? And so, for example, let's say something as simple as, should students sit in the front of the class to perform better? And my what would be, what do I think? Students should sit in the front of the class in order to excel. That's my position. Someone may take a different position. In fact, you as a student may say, you know what, I don't think that's necessary. And so you may have a different claim. You'd have to prove it. And so I would do the same thing. So the claim is, where do you stand? What is your position? What is your assertion? And you would form it that way. Directly after you've established your claim, you need to provide specific reasons, and ideally it would be a unique approach to an argument that most of your peers may not have already identified. And in this case, it may come from the reading or it can come from other sources. So again, this week you're going to get several different sources. You're going to need to select a claim or decide on a position or a side, and then you're going to have reasons. Now, if this were an essay, this would be your topic sentence. So at least 2 to 3 reasons behind your claim. This is the why do you have your claim. So the first one is the what do you think, which is the claim, and then why do you think it, that would be your reasons. Okay. Let's go back and take a look at an example. So originally my claim was students should sit in the front of the class in order to excel with their grades. And my 2 reasons would be, and these are unique reasons, I don't think anyone else would come up with this. One would be students are more alert. That's one reason. And the second reason would be they can get direct support from the teacher. Those are my 2 reasons. And then now I need to provide you with evidence. Your evidence will most likely come from the source readings that I give you. But my evidence in this case is going to come from 1, my observation, and 2, my own experience. So I've observed that students who sit in the front, not only when they're alert, they're less distracted. There's my sum of evidence. They're just looking at the front board. And then my own experience with direct support for the evidence would be something along the lines of they have a question, I can answer it right away. And we don't have to sometimes involve the entire class. So it's almost like a one-on-one ratio for the student and the teacher. The next idea is what's referred to as the warrant part of your argument. And so this essentially is where you connect your reasoning and your evidence to your claim. And essentially what happens is if your audience does not accept your warrant, then there's a good chance that they will not accept your claim. The warrant is also something that is implied. It's not necessarily something that you're going to say. It's like a principle that you share with your audience. And so it's an assumption that both parties can make. My assumption might be that if you don't sit in the front of the class, or if you sit in the back of the class, you may not perform as well. And since the idea or value is that we want to do well in the class, then we may agree on that warrant. Another really important part of an argument is for you to identify the weaknesses and holes in your own argument or your own position or claim before your opponent does. And so this is your ability to acknowledge the counter arguments or the counter evidence or the counter claim or the counter warrant, and to acknowledge it. So you would state it, you acknowledge what they say, and then you need to provide a reason. So the other side is going to have some skepticism. They may have some questions or some doubt about your claim. So if you address it first and then you respond to it, that definitely establishes a level of credibility. It actually strengthens your claim. You would think by pointing out the weaknesses or showing the holes yourself may make your argument weaker, but it actually strengthens your claim. And the strength comes in your ability to respond appropriately to that counter argument. So here's an example of me acknowledging the weakness in my claim. Not everybody, I want to acknowledge that not everyone who sits in the back of the room underperforms. In fact, you may even note that there are only so many seats in the front. Does that mean that everybody who sits anywhere else will not do as well? Well, let me respond by saying that if you're self-disciplined and you're self-motivated, then it doesn't matter where you sit, you're going to do well. But you also run the risk of being distracted. So my argument or my response would be something along the lines of, you increase the probability of excelling in the class the closer to the front that you sit. And when you're in the very front, you increase that chance. How will I know that you actually listened to this lecture and you did the reading? Why don't you get a piece of mail from your house? Don't give me the information in the mail, just an envelope with someone's name on it. You can cross out the address and bring it with you to class. And this idea will go along with the topic that we're covering this week, this U.S. Postal Services.